All right. Good evening. It's about 6:30, or excuse me, it's about 6 p.m. on January 31st, Friday. Daily Hawk. I'm Hawk. I'm your host. We are in the midst, currently, of what I am sure is going to be described as a Friday night massacre. Donald Trump is purging the Department of Justice and the FBI. He has fired at least 30 federal prosecutors who worked on J6 Capitol riot cases, and he's firing potentially hundreds of FBI agents who worked on January 6 cases and who worked on the criminal investigations into him related to January 6th. The Mar-a-Lago classified documents case, and agents who executed the search warrant at Mar-a-Lago. He is explicitly demonstrating that as President of the United States, he is going to exert full control over the Department of Justice and the FBI. I've been talking about this for approximately 2 years. And now he's doing it. And for context, you need to understand that the resulting investigations and prosecutions for the January 6th case, the insurrection at the Capitol, was the largest investigation and criminal prosecution in the history of the United States Justice Department. It involved untold numbers of FBI agents, DOJ prosecutors, and staff. Fortunately, he cannot fire federal judges who oversaw these hundreds of prosecutions in these cases. But I said this in a TikTok earlier today or yesterday, I don't remember which. We are now an authoritarian state in the United States. The United States of America is now an authoritarian government under Donald Trump. And on his first day, he pardoned every single person involved in the January 6th insurrection, except for 14 people whose sentences he commuted. And this is what authoritarians do when they come into office. They pardon people who had previously committed violence on their behalf. And Donald Trump has now taken over our nation's federal law enforcement structure. He is firing every FBI agent, regardless of anything else that they've done in their careers, if they were involved in investigating January 6th defendants, or if they were involved in investigating him personally, whether it be for January 6th, his efforts to overturn the 2020 election, or the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case, and especially those agents who were involved in executing the search warrant at his house. Firing 30 federal prosecutors, career prosecutors, meaning that they are attorneys who joined the DOJ at the beginning of their career and have spent their entire careers there. It's very hard for me to describe to you guys how bad this is. The President of the United States has explicitly taken over federal law enforcement in the United States of America. He has ordered the DOJ to dismiss multiple cases, criminal investigations into his allies, into Republicans, and his incoming Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and his incoming Director of the FBI, Kash Patel, have both made it very clear that they believe that the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump. They do not believe that he lost that election. And I would expect that they are going to conduct themselves accordingly in their new professional positions. I have been a licensed practicing trial attorney for almost 26 years. The law is something that is very important to me, and it's how I've made my living, and it's a profession to which I have dedicated myself for almost half my life. And this part's not new, given the last couple of years. The rule of law is very, very, very much in doubt now in the United States at the federal level. That is a stunning statement to make. This is the kind of shit that you see in like Russia or China, dictatorial nations, Hungary, Belarus, authoritarian, autocratic rulers who control their nation's national law enforcement capabilities to excuse the conduct of their allies, to purge law enforcement of anyone who has investigated them, and clearly to send a message to those members of the FBI and the DOJ who will remain employed by those two agencies. So, we don't need to wait for Donald Trump's authoritarianism to land. It has been here since a week ago Monday when he was inaugurated. We are an authoritarian country now, with an authoritarian government and an authoritarian ruler. It's important to note that all of these firings, pretty much all of these firings, are illegal, as have been most of the firings that Donald Trump has conducted since he took office 11 days ago. Federal bureaucratic employees have employment protections. You're not permitted to fire them for political ideology. You're not permitted to fire them because they engaged in investigations, legal investigations in the past. You're not permitted to fire them because they won't be sufficiently loyal to you. You are permitted to fire federal employees for cause. That is the law. And so not only is Donald Trump doing these things, he is demonstrating and communicating quite clearly that he is not going to obey the law, and neither is his administration. Our current iteration of the Supreme Court, 3 of the 6 justices were chosen by him in his first term, has given him immunity from criminal prosecution for any official act he takes while President of the United States. Given that he is firing people who are in the executive branch, these actions that he has taken since the day he took office 11 days ago will no doubt be viewed by this Supreme Court as official acts. And because remember, the Supreme Court in that immunity decision, one of the worst Supreme Court decisions of my lifetime, and this current Supreme Court, there's been no shortage of decisions that I could describe as such. When assessing a president's official acts, you are not permitted to look at or question their motives for taking certain specific actions. So, here we are. We are here. We have a lawless president of the United States, a convicted felon, who was quite appropriately described by a federal judge in New York in a post-trial order as a rapist, who still owes the state of New York over $500 million for fraud, who ran an explicitly racist, misogynistic, bigoted, transphobic presidential campaign, and said that he was going to do exactly this. This is Project 2025 with Donald Trump's own personal grievances sprinkled on top. I'm not surprised that he's doing this. I expected him to do some version of this. Frankly, I'm surprised he waited until the end of the second week of his second term to do this, given that he pardoned all the January 6ers on day one. But I want everybody to be very, very clear that we are now an authoritarian country with an authoritarian government and an authoritarian ruler in Donald Trump, who has now taken control of the entirety of the federal law enforcement and justice system. And he is going to use it. He's going to give his Attorney General and his FBI director direct orders as to who to investigate and prosecute, which will no doubt be a further continuation of his own personal grievances. And again, Donald Trump is a symptom of what is wrong with this country. And what is wrong with this country is the American electorate who decided to return him to office in the first place, out of greed and selfishness and racism and misogyny. Even though I expected him to do this, the fact that it's happening is personally very frightening to me. And just utterly horrifying. I did not ever think that I would live to see these kinds of things happen in the United States of America. Anyway, we'll keep everybody posted on any new developments. And please click on the link in the link tree in my bio to go follow my YouTube page, because TikTok is still going to go away. And even if it stays, it's going to suck. You know, I said for months leading up to Election Day that we needed to use our imaginations in the worst way possible. to imagine the absolute worst possible things that Donald Trump could do if he got reelected. And he has spent the last 2 weeks doing exactly those things. But it's here. And I fear that this country will never, ever, ever be the same again.